What is up, guys? We are excited to be with you on another Tuesday night. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin here, 410 Sports Talk, and our boy DK running the show in the background. We're excited to be here in another evening, and grateful you guys are here with us as well. Shout out to Bill Seals for the love. DK getting the love for sure. If you guys...
Thanks, Austin. Shout out to Austin in the chat.
Looking sexy.
Man, I'm going to start blushing.
Oh, gosh. But no, if you guys haven't checked out the articles yet, go find us on Patreon and check out DK's articles. He's doing them weekly at this point, and then I sprinkle in some other stuff. Certainly, you'll be able to decipher the difference in the quality of writing. But make sure to check it out. Either way, it's $1 a month and you get access to all our articles. DK's great insight. There's some really awesome breakdowns in there. So go ahead and check it out. But we're here to talk about the Ravens. Usually we start with a little bit of news, but I think today being the open of mandatory minicamp, Glenn, I think we should just get right into it, right?
Let's do it. Let's get right into it. And today marks the first day the position battles, and that's really what we want to get into today is what position battles are the most interesting, and where do we see the Ravens going heavy at? Which position do we see the Ravens beefing up at, and which do we see them kind of going a little slimmer at than we've seen in the past? I think this is definitely a different year going into Lamar's fourth season now. I think there's definitely a difference in having a now veteran quarterback versus a young guy. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it. I guess the first thing we should start is who didn't practice today. Does that sound okay? So, shout out to Jeff Zrebiec. We're getting this list off of his tweeter. Jeff Zrebiec, who writes for The Athletic. He says, "Did I say tweeter?
You said tweeter. I thought you were I thought you were being funny.
I don't know why I said tweeter. Maybe I combine tweet and Twitter. That's what I got.
Yeah, it's all right. It was a tweener word. You see that?
There we go. Yeah, the brain works in weird ways. But it looks like Jeff didn't see Ricard out at practice today. Nick Boyle, who still has a knee injury or coming back from a knee injury. Jake Breland still the same thing, battling back from a knee. Jawan James, of course, no one's expecting him to be out there as he still recovers from the Achilles injury. Ronnie Stanley's still not out there. And they did ask John about, him not being out there yet. He said he still expects him to be ready for week 1, but he's not currently on the practice field. Linebacker Aaron Adeoye, I'm not even sure how to pronounce his name, and I do apologize, Aaron, for that, but he's not on the practice field. Safety Jordan Richards and cornerback Iman Marshall. Also, Derek Wolfe was on the field, but not in uniform, in street clothes, and Coach Harbaugh said he was dealing with a bit of pneumonia that he's still coming back from. So hopefully he gets back and is back on the practice field shortly.
Man, hopefully he kicks the pneumonia for sure. That's kind of that's a weird one. What do you think? I wonder, with Ricard, obviously with it being mandatory, unless these guys are willing to take hits as far as money goes, it's got to be an injury thing.
It's a hip. It's listed as a hip.
Yeah, hopefully he's all right, and they're being precautious more than anything. But certainly some people think that that's a legitimate battle in the backfield there with him and old Bench Mason going at it. But what's your take on that? I don't think that that's real this year. I think maybe next year. But
it'd be surprising to see them lean on a rookie.
Yeah,
when you consider what Ricard's brought, yeah,
right. But the one thing I want to talk about that I think is going under the radar, not my book, of course, because nothing gets by Haskell or Haskell, but the quarterback 2 spot is, I think, an interesting battle. And so I want to talk about that. But really quickly, Glenn, I just want to interject because one of the cool things that we're doing, I mentioned this a couple times, Move for Life is really cool. Go check out what they do. And I've talked about them. I'll talk about them here in a second. But one of the things we're going to do tonight, based on their foundation, which I think is really cool, we're going to be donating all of the proceeds tonight from our super chats from you guys to their foundation because we think it's really cool, really good cause. So go ahead and if you're going to go ahead and super chat, you can know it's for a good cause. If you have any comments and you want to guarantee a read on the show, go ahead and do it as well. And then check them out. You can make a donation or sign up for their Super Soldier competition. But really their goal is to provide fitness opportunities for people that are in lower socioeconomic situations that Medicare and Medicaid does not cover. So go ahead and check it out, moveforlife.org. But we're going to be, like I said, donating all of our millions of dollars this evening to them for sure. And we're excited to do that. But Glenn, quarterback 2, QB2.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, big mishap by the Ravens photography team, who took a picture of Tyler Huntley, and you guys can check it out from the voluntary workouts videos, Tyler Huntley, and said it was Lamar Jackson scrambling down the field. He was obviously not Lamar Jackson in the number, and you just take a good look at him. But Tyler Huntley is in my vision. We have Tyler, and then we have McSorley, Trace McSorley. What's your take on the two? Talk to me about how you feel about those two. You know where I stand. I'm a Tyler guy naturally, but Trace is also a decent player and looked okay in spots. So where are you as far as the QB2 position goes? Because look, that's the second most important person on the field, right? Or on the team.
In theory, yeah.
Right.
He's one injury away, yeah.
Right.
But as long as Lamar's healthy, he certainly isn't. But I can't really get on the Ravens too much because I've made similar gaffes in my thumbnail of selections in our history, and it's been pointed out, and then I quickly fixed it. So yeah, mistakes do happen, but yeah I think that Tyler Huntley showed a lot of poise and showed a lot of confidence in when he came into that Buffalo game. So I think it started off this offseason really started off in a good direction for him, and I think he had the inside track. So to me, it's really up to does he lose it today? I mean, really, he'd have to lose it, in my opinion, at this point. I think that what he showed in that playoff game was impressive. I mean, yeah, he wasn't the greatest passer out there. He missed a big throw, but the type of poise he brought to that situation with very little practice, I thought was impressive. Now, we did see a tweet from Zrebeck, who also mentioned that the quarterbacks did have an up and down day. There was a lot of interceptions being thrown today from all the quarterbacks. So hopefully they can iron some things out when it comes to that. But yeah, I think McSorley is a prime candidate to get through to the practice squad. I mean, I don't see any team grabbing him up in the waivers. So yeah, let's stick with the guy who's the most similar to our current quarterback, who you wouldn't have to change the offense a ton if he were forced into action. I don't really see, I mean, unless he really is throwing inaccurate balls, making poor decisions, I think he's the obvious choice for QB2.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And a big part of that to me is, while he had an overthrow in the Bills game, I think every time that we saw him in the spots that we did, I don't think the lights were too bright for him. And I think that's saying a lot for an undrafted rookie who had no real preseason, right? I mean, no one other than me knew who Tyler Huntley was in the Ravens community for the most part, unless you happen to be a Utes fan, because that's really the only way you saw him, right?
Yeah, yep.
So he was really unknown, and for him to come in and, like I said, in spots, but to play well and to execute in the offense in spots, even in trash time, like all those things count. So I agree with you. I think he's pulled ahead. I think it's his job to lose. Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the opposite side of the ball, another interesting battle. Steven says, why is nobody talking about our linebackers? I'm worried about them and our coverage. It's our weakest link. Even Queen, you never know what you're going to get. And shout out to you for you. Thanks, Steven, for helping to donate to a good cause. But, this actually has been a pretty big talking point, certainly towards Patrick Queen. And anytime he's been in front of a microphone, they've talked specifically, and he's talked specifically about the coverage woes from last season and how he's worked this offseason really directly on those coverage woes. And then he said that he came into camp last year at 245. He said he was about 10 pounds overweight, couldn't catch his wind, and really took till week 5 before he felt like he actually had his wind and was able to keep it throughout the entire course of a game. So he said he's worked himself into fantastic shape. And again, focused his training this offseason around being better at coverage. First of all, understanding the defense and being able to play fast, but also getting his body in the kind of shape. So he says he wants to play it around 235, which is 10 pounds lighter than we saw him week 1 last season.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was just the realization of 2 things, right? Like, yeah. So actually 3 things. One, the fact that he recognized it. He sometimes it's difficult for anyone, but certainly athletes, because your ego and your confidence can make you what's great about you. But for him to compartmentalize his game, put his ego aside and say publicly, this is what I'm focused on. This is what I need to work on. And to do that and to recognize that, number one, is great. And I think that speaks to him. But there's 2 other things to remember. One, no preseason. Like, we're not talking about just no preseason games. I mean, their preseason preparation was extremely limited, right? Most of it was like Zoom and stuff like that. And he's even said it's hard to simulate football. Like, it's just difficult to do. And then the other thing is that he's still relatively young in this position, being that we said this before, but he came to LSU as a running back. He was only a 1-year starter at LSU. So I'm hopeful. I'm confident that there's a lot of room for him in the ability to improve at that part of his job. And I'm also really interested. Not a ton of people are talking about Malik Jackson, right?
Malik Harrison.
Jeez, it was.
Think of the D tackle.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. But a lot of people are talking about him, and I think his coverage skills go under the radar. You've mentioned that before, but I think overall his leap could be really big this coming year as well. Like, people were excited about Queen last year. He had some great moments in the season, but I think the combination of them two and the jump they can make together can be spectacular because of a true offseason, a true preseason, and going into their second year. So we can surmise that this could be a more than normal improvement from year 1 to year 2 based on all the stuff they have this year that they didn't have last year.
No doubt. I'm expecting a big jump from Queen. And also, don't forget about LJ Fort and all that he brings to that. I think Harbaugh was talking about, he was initially asked about Patrick Queen, but he brought up LJ Fort and the veteran leadership he brings to that room and how well he plays in that area as well. So Malik Harrison, I think the jury's still out on him in coverage at this level because, a lot of that, he's a big guy. He's a large, especially for this day and age at the linebacker spot. He's a big guy, and also some questions about his change of direction, athleticism. I've heard people pointing to the fact that he's slew-footed and that his feet point to 10 and 2, and how they haven't really seen a guy with that issue ever hit the heights of the athleticism needed to be a great cover corner. But I think downs 1 and 2, he could certainly make his presence felt, and never know. He could still develop in that area. But I think LJ
Isn't LeBron James slew-footed too? Pretty bad.
I've never noticed that about LeBron. I mean,
oh yeah,
LeBron? No way.
I promise you, go look it up. Just watch him walk. It's like this.
I mean, all I see is a stud when I see LeBron James walking around. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, I just see an absolute stud. But yeah,
I'm telling you, next time.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout now. I mean, of course, I'm gonna have to wait till next season since he's
that's true.
Gone fishing.
Is sitting on the side watching Bronny play.
That's right.
But even then, just watch him walk in. He's got the.
Okay, all right. I'll be on the lookout. But yeah, I think both of us are excited about the progression of all these guys, and also, you're a big fan of Chris Board, so let's not forget about what he can bring. Obviously, he's a real special teams contributor, but also I think he's going to see some more time on defense this year.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to stay on the defensive side of the ball, and I want to talk about well, first of all, I got another announcement for you guys. Really excited that we are going to have Landry Burdine. Sorry, Landry, if I didn't say your name correctly, but Landry Burdine from TCU. He's a media member from TCU, and he's a former player and
former safety.
Former safety. Exactly. We're going to have him on to talk about our Darius Washington. We cannot wait. It's looking like it's going to be on Thursday. He's committed to coming on. We're lining up the times, but he has committed to coming on. So we're really, really excited about that. We want to give you guys as much insight as we can. The reason I brought that up is because I want to talk about the secondary. One of the things that we've mentioned is that behind Chuck Clark and Deshaun Elliott, there's really not much, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some familiar names there, but How big is the talent drop off after Chuck and Deshaun?
Exactly. That's what's so exciting to me about this prospect in our Darius Washington is that he has a real opportunity to make a splash as an undrafted guy. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, look, here's who he's got to leapfrog. Jordan Richards, who's been around now for a little bit. And I think he's got some talent. Nigel Warrior, who I think was kind of an early fan favorite last year, and then I can't remember.
He's got like the good size, right? Isn't he like
Yeah, he's got a lot of measurables that you like to see in a guy. And then Geno Stone, who's kind of the opposite. He's got a lot of instincts, but I mean, one of the few athletes I can remember that has negative length, certainly limited in his speed, but definitely an instinctual player and a guy that was asked to play a lot of that deep center field that we talk about. What's missing? He got to play a lot of that back at Iowa. I remember watching tape from him last year. And then Anthony Levine, who's, I mean, do you even consider Anthony Levine? Okay, he's not a direct replacement in that he can't do what a lot of these guys can do, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. To me, you should just put ST next to his name.
Well, right, he does come in that linebacker spot,
but certainly not at this stage in his career. He's not going to be, playing the rangy traditional type safety role, right? Because he's not there anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. He's not there, but let's look at what they've taken or kept in the past. Let's see. Last year, it looks like they kept Chuck Clark and Deshaun Elliott, of course. Jordan Richards was on the team, Anthony Levine, and Geno Stone initially made the roster. It was later they tried to cut him and get him through to the practice squad, and he was claimed by Houston. So when you look, I mean, who do you think's ultimately the odd man out of, let's see, Levine isn't going anywhere, right? So he's definitely in there. So who do you look at as being the odd man out between Richards, Warrior, Stone, and Darius Washington?
That's really interesting because you can go two ways where like Richardson's been around for a while. So that means he could have a better grasp on the system. But Warrior is younger. Maybe they know less about him. Maybe they see more potential there and they roll there. I'm going to go Richardson here. Richards, sorry. Yeah, Richards, my bad. Yeah, I'm going to go Richards here. I think that he is going to be seeing the door. Man, that sucks.
Yeah, well, he's
calling it like it's set in stone.
I know. Yeah, I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him. He's getting released. But, I mean, I can see that. Because when you look at Geno Stone, there's a reason they got him back. You know, they brought him back because they must see something in him. They must like something about him and what he brings. Because he's back. So, and I'm sure they weren't thrilled to see him get taken by Houston. I mean, definitely they have the youth part going in their favor. Jordan Richards is 28. Nigel Warrior is 23. I think Geno's right around there. But, yeah, I guess it's a wait and see on that spot. But I wanted to stay in the secondary but move a little bit and talk about the cornerback room because this one is really interesting to me. When you look at all the corners that are in the room right now, there's going to be a good one or possibly two that are going to ultimately get released. So I want to talk about who that might be because you got Marlon, right? You got Marlon Humphrey. He's not going anywhere unless you tell me he is because I know you make the decisions over at the Castle.
Right. No, he's all right. He's all right for now.
You think we'll keep him? All right, we'll keep him.
Yeah.
Tavon Young's back on the field after, a long offseason, again, recovering from an injury. So he's not going anywhere, right?
Right. Okay, too much money. I mean, it just makes, they got this marriage has to work for at least another year.
Right, exactly. And they got Jimmy Smith, who's not going anywhere. He's the old veteran. He's still giving out pointers even to all pros across the team.
Right. And the one thing I'll say is I think that the clamoring of Jimmy moving to safety is dead. I think Jimmy is a career corner. I don't see him playing safety anytime soon.
Yeah, corners are too good or too valuable to a team to get cut or to get moved to safety unless they can no longer play corner. So as long as he can still play corner at an effective level, he will continue to be that. But there is going to be times where he does safety stuff or safety things, as John likes to say. Then you have Anthony Averett and Sean Wade, who I consider locks on this roster. I mean, Anthony Averett showed he can be a nice player in spots and maybe can develop into a real quality player that can spell some of these great corners ahead of them and give them a little bit of a breather and help extend their careers, make them better, avoid injury, all the kind of things that guys like that do. So I got 6 right here that I consider locks. So how in the world? Where's Brandon Stevens figure into this group? Where's Iman Marshall figure into this group? I mean, how are they going to make this decision, Jimbo?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I can't believe we omitted to bring up Brandon in the safety conversation. Not that he was drafted as a corner positionally, but I think he ends up being lumped into the safety room, don't you? Like, based on what Eric in the front office has said?
That's what it looks like, but I'm just going off of the depth chart, and now he's currently listed as a corner. But yeah, absolutely, I could see him moving to safety. Yep.
But yeah, I think Iman is unfortunately seeing the door, because, like you said, Averett, while Iman Marshall was having some injury issues last year, right towards the end of the season, and Averett, like you said, I think he stepped his game up. Him and Marlon played well together in stretches, and obviously them playing in college together, and Marlon knowing he can depend on him, I think increases his value as well. So yeah, I think that he, like you said, he's a lock. So yeah, I think Iman's out. Obviously, you take a guy in the third round, he's going to be on the team. But certainly, so I think that if you roll with so if you took just Stevens, like you take the list that you have and then you add Stevens, that's 7, right? And
then you think about, I saw a lot of love on Twitter for Khalil Dorsey. Khalil Dorsey's another guy who I think has been largely forgotten. Apparently he had an interception. So if he continues to make plays, my goodness, this is going to make the decision even tougher. I agree, though. I think Iman Marshall's gone. But man, I mean, I'm looking at this list. I mean, I think they're going to have to end up cutting Khalil Dorsey, even though he is making plays. I see Chris Westry listed also in the cornerback room. Never heard of the guy. I mean, wish him luck, but I would be very surprised to see him make the team since I've never heard of him. But yeah, so I think Khalil Dorsey, Iman Marshall eventually are cut. And man, it's going to be a tough battle for that last spot, because man, Tavon, it almost like you have to go a little heavy in cornerback, because you know there's going to be an injury to Tavon Young. You know there's going to be an injury at some point to Jimmy Smith. I mean, those are just things we know will happen. Now, I think Jimmy will still ultimately play more games than he misses, but Tavon, who knows what's going to happen to that guy this year?
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly going to be interesting. And like you said, you got to have an insurance policy at the end of the day. It just is what it is.
Even Ing Raven forgot about Khalil Dorsey. He's in the chat. Shout out to Ing. Even he forgot about Khalil Dorsey. I mean, the guy's been forgotten.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, right? But yeah, it's really going to be an interesting battle. I would have loved to have been out there today and in the next 2 days to see how mini camp goes, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. And so you think at the end of the day they carry 6, or I guess we counted 7, right?
I think they might have to go 7 just because of the injury issues. And you know what Ozzie always said, you can't have too many good cover corners, and especially in a team that relies so heavily on those cover corners. When it doesn't appear that they have a ton of pass rush to help out, at least right now. So you better be darn deep at the cornerback spot.
Yeah, certainly. You better be deep, and you better be good at playing man, because no surprises here. Baltimore's playing man, and you got to deal with it. But at the same time, and this is why we're talking about this, because you can only have so many corners, but you got to fill out the roster. You know what I mean? You gotta look at other positions. You got to look at the O-line. You got to look at, every position right now when you're building out this roster affects the other. Whether you have 2 quarterbacks or 3. I mean, you might not think about it, but that number is, eventually, if you have 2 or 3, that decision will affect the number of corners you keep. And then that, so the list goes on and on. There's a real domino effect there. But I want to talk about that, Glenn. I want to talk about the offensive line. Now, we've talked about locks. So obviously, Ronnie Stanley, Alejandro Villanueva are locks, right?
Locks.
Yep. And then you got Bozeman, who's a lock on the team, and he looks to be the lock at center. I mean, I guess you never know. Looks to be the lock at center. And then you got Zeitler, who's a definite lock at right guard. We just paid him, brought him in, former Pro Bowler, that he's going to be a lock. But the left guard spot, people are giving to Ben Cleveland. We've had this discussion before, but it was a couple weeks ago. How are you feeling about that? Jeff Zrebeck seems to think that there's a real competition brewing there, and that Powers, and Bredesen, they're fighting for their lives. right? They're not just going to come in and give it to a rookie.
Absolutely not. They got to feel like they're the leader in the clubhouse. They don't care what the media is saying. They got to think, look, Ben Cleveland still has to learn this offense. He has to show that he can execute in this offense. And, when they talk about his limitations athletically, if he's the pool, he has to show that he can do that and do it at an effective level. He has to show that he can play a penalty-free style of football. That was a big problem last year for the Ravens, was penalties, shooting themselves in the foot. And I don't know if there's a team that is hurt more by early down penalties than the Ravens, because they're a team that needs to stay ahead of the chains in order to incorporate that crazy run offense that they bring to the table. But if you're at 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 20 because you just got a holding or a false start, it makes it a little harder to run the ball because you don't want to be in 3rd and long. Really, nobody wants to be in 3rd and long, but certainly not the Ravens. So I'm not so sure. I mean, I think that they'd like Ben Cleveland to be the guy, and they'd like him to win the job, because when they look at his run blocking and what he can bring to that area, it's absolutely phenomenal. And then you consider he gave up 3 pressures or something in his entire pass blocking, or 3 sacks in his entire pass blocking career at Georgia. Yeah. So I think that they're excited about what he can be. But man, if you're Ben Powers, are you not saying this is my job? I mean, I played last year, right? I was in those big moments. I was the one in the trenches. I was the one fighting to protect Lamar Jackson, not Ben Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have that feeling if you're Ben Powers, and we talked about Patrick Queen facing reality and understanding what he's not good at, and going out and improving on that. Ben Powers had a great, I think it was like an 89% win rate in the rush on rushing attempts, right, as a run blocker, but as a pass blocker, to say it nicely, he left more to be desired, right? So certainly he had to have gone into this offseason attacking with all his might and will and strength and focus that part of his game. Because if he can just do that, I mean, he's already most likely more mobile than old Ben Cleveland, right? Like, Ben Cleveland's not going to, shock you with his feet. But the hard part is, the thing about Ben Cleveland is that you can't coach his size. Same thing that people said with Orlando Brown. Poor guy, he's running the 40 and his boobies are hitting him in the face, right? Like, I've never seen anything like that before in my life, but he's massive. You just can't, you get lost in him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just can't teach that. So at what point so that's, to me, if I'm Ben Powers, I'm like, dang, like, I can't be 6'6". I'm not 6'6", 330 with my chest out further than my belly, because Ben Cleveland, 350. And my gut's not hanging out. I mean, it's just insane to me. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think at the end of the day, Cleveland wins the job, but I think he's really going to be pushed hard. Don't you?
I'm hopeful, because, iron sharpens iron, right? So the better they are behind him, the better he will have to be to beat them out. So no doubt, I think that this is an exciting year for guys that are into offensive line play, because it's going to be interesting to see how especially if Ronnie's not back. I mean, right now, he says he's expecting Ronnie back, but until I see him on the field, I'm nervous about because Juwan James, I like the fact they brought him in to help out at the right tackle spot, but he's not going to be ready till at the very earliest December, which is what Harbaugh was talking about, compared him to Suggs having a similar injury and similar timeline and was able to help out at the end of the year. But even if he's helpful, able to help and come back this year, it's not going to be until the very latter part of the year. Right. So we're going to need someone to play left tackle. And if Alejandro's spending all his time learning the craft of right tackle, who's in there at left? I mean, that's got to be an interesting thing for the Ravens coaching staff to be, focused on, and figuring out who's going to fill in at that spot. Because right now, I mean, is Andre Smith? I guess Andre Smith's in there right now, but I mean, that's a scary proposition. And there's a reason they decided to bring in Juwan James. But I want to talk a little bit about the tight end room, if that's cool with you. Because
one thing I want to do really quickly is I want to shout out because Songstress for Real just made a comment, and Songstress for Real is one of our new patrons. So shout out! I'm glad you're on the live show. And then another one as well. I think only his first name's on here. His name is Jimmy. So Jimmy Kidwell, another one of our new patrons as well. So shout out to the both of you guys. Songstress, nice to see you, contributing to the show. Appreciate the comments. But yes, sorry, Glenn. I just wanted to get to that before I forgot. But let's get to the tight end room because I think it's like you said, it's an important conversation to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting battle setting up in the tight end room. I think there's guaranteed locks with Andrews and Nick Boyle. There's no doubt about that. But how many do they keep? Who wins the battle? And really, who do the Ravens decide is most important? A guy who's known more for being in the trenches and putting guys on their backside, or a guy that can run up the seam and help in the passing game? So when you look at the group of Eric Tomlinson, Josh Oliver, Jacob Breeland, Eli Wolf, and his Harbaugh, pointed out today, Tony Apologin, I think his name is, from Virginia, I believe, the tight end, said he made a couple really nice plays today, nice catches, and a guy he says will benefit from when the pads come on, which makes me think he's probably a physical player. How do you see the Ravens deciding? Do you think they go with a blocking tight end because they're worried about Nick Boyle going down, or do you think they need to add some speed and athleticism to the room?
Here's the real question. How hard was it for you to get through that entire question without laughing?
Boobies hitting.
But look,
because most adults don't say boobies, Jim.
Well, I tried not to be derogatory, right? So like I tried to make it lighthearted. That's why I chose that word. You know what I mean? But certainly, like, you know what I'm talking about. It was a sight to see because poor Orlando is running out of field and he's getting hit in the
You need a trainer, bro?
Yes. Oh, man. I felt bad for the poor guy. But like I said, you can't train 6'8", whatever he is, 350, on a diet. You know what I mean? You just can't.
You can't. But as Troy says, James, this is a Christian stream.
That's why I said boobies. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say it nice. But anyway, so geez, whiz. Shout out to
anyway. Yeah, let me ask you that again, Jimbo, in case you forgot.
No,
where do they go?
List. I got the question, but read me this list here. I know we got
Oliver, Eric Tomlinson, Jacob Breeland, Eli Wolf, and Tony Poljan.
Right. So didn't Harbaugh like a week ago or so, and Mark Andrews in his interview both reference Eli?
Yep.
I think they both did. I think he's making his way as a viable number 3. So I'll say it like this. I hope, based on potential, that it's Eli and Oliver, because I think Oliver's got potential. He's just been hit by the bug, and he's playing at a essential dumpster fire down in Jacksonville. So get him, with real coaching and things like that, and a real organization. No offense, Jacksonville. But so I hope it's those two.
No offense. You can't say that and say no offense.
That's true. You do have Tim Tebow as your number 3 tight end. Yeah, well, Tim Tebow is your number 3 tight end. You deserve it. Anyway, so yes, what I'm trying to say is that I hope it's those two because I think athletically, route running wise, they do a really good job. I can see Tomlinson making this team though, because you talked about the value, and the Ravens are the type of team that are going to value a guy that's going to get in there, get dirty, not complain, not, you know what I mean? He's not going to shy away from a battle in the trenches. So I could see him, being that 4th guy in there. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm not equating Ben Mason into this either. I'm considering him in the running back fullback room, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's definitely a jack of all trades. He's going to have some input in, I think, in a bunch of different areas, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how they unleash the weapon that is Bench Mason. But you're not excited at all about getting Jacob Breeland possibly back onto the field? I know he didn't practice today, but
maybe it's my disdain towards Oregon because they beat the brakes off of us back in college. But I think it's difficult to separate his game from his production from the system that's in place there. And I know he's been out of college for a while, but he hasn't stayed healthy long enough to do anything aside from what you see in his college tape. So yeah, I think it's a real long shot for him.
And do you think when you hear Harbs bringing up Tony Poljan, is that just throwing a bone to a guy who you're proud of how he's playing? But
yeah,
any chance? No,
okay. No, unless he's a really great special teamer. Right. Unless he does something that gets you excited, because Harbs will keep a guy just because of special teams. If anyone will, it'll be John Harbaugh. But yeah, I don't see it. I think he's trying to get Tony. He's doing 2 things. He's proud of the way the kid's playing, and he wants to give him an opportunity, and he wants to push his guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
So how do you think it ends up lining up? Because we got the 1 and the 2, but how do you see the 3 and the 4 being?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to know if they even keep 4. I'm not so sure they even keep 4. I mean, unless Nick Boyle is showing that he's not quite 100% back from the injury, I'm expecting him to keep just 3. And I think it comes down to whoever ends up being the healthiest of these athletic guys. I think, well, Tomlinson, that's where I'm torn because they brought Tomlinson back for what? I mean, they didn't bring him back just to cut him. So I think there would have to be a situation where he's so outplayed that he's released, but maybe they do keep 4, but I definitely don't think it. I think it's between Oliver, Breland, and Wolf. It won't be any 2 of those guys.
So you don't think Tomlinson has a chance?
No, I think Tomlinson has a chance, but I think the question to me is, yeah, I think Tomlinson, you got to put, I mean, they didn't give him a ton of money, but why just sign a guy in the offseason just to have him be dead cap in the regular season? I don't really see that. So I think Tomlinson has a great shot at the 3 spot, and then I think it comes down to Oliver, Breland, and Wolf, whoever stays healthy. And then you hope maybe one of the other guys goes through the practice squad. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how many they keep, because didn't they only keep last year? Didn't they only keep 2 coming out of camp with just Boyle? And I'm pretty sure they only kept Boyle and Mark Andrews when they broke camp. That's what Our Lads is saying. They only had those 2. So, and DK's nodding his head in the back. So yeah, I think I think it'd be maybe a bit of a stretch to see them keep 4. So if it's only 3 guys, I think it ends up being the most athletic, and I think Tomlinson's probably ultimately some more dead cap. Now, it's not a ton. It's only a little bit of money, but I think he ends up being beat out because they're going to fall in love with the athleticism of one of these 3 guys, unless all 3 of them get hurt, and then Tomlinson's the shoe-in.
Yeah, man, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out because I think, who knows, maybe, yeah, I mean, 4, I guess, would be a real stretch, huh? But
yeah,
look, we use tight ends more than anyone else, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt. And they are keeping only 2 quarterbacks this year. At least most are expecting.
Right. So it's gonna be interesting for sure. I mean,
Troy points it out. It's only $125K of dead cap money, so it's not as much as I even thought. And I didn't think it would be much, but it's even less than I was expecting. So I guess it wouldn't be a big deal to cut Tomlinson. And if I mean, do you see anyone claiming any of these guys off the practice squad? I mean, I'd be surprised if any of these guys get signed to an active roster unless we see a situation where Josh Oliver, Jacob Breland, and Eli Wolf are all 3 showing out in preseason. All 3 are staying healthy throughout the duration of camp, and possibly they're all showing out in these joint practices. John Harbaugh was asked today if he anticipates a joint practice this year. He said they're already in talks and communication and getting one. He didn't want to make any announcements because they haven't finalized anything yet, but be on the lookout of an announcement for the Ravens. Yeah, doing a joint practice this year. I would expect, let's see, I would expect it to either
like the Washington football team.
That could be one. I think Philly's an option. They've already had one in the past with Philly.
Do we have a preseason game against the Eagles this year?
I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Because I know we do against Washington, so I figured, like, you practice together a couple times and then you play.
Isn't that what they did with Philly?
Yep.
That would make sense. And they did one with the Jaguars. Did they also play the Jaguars when they did the joint practices? Yeah,
I think so. And it looks like we don't play against Philly this year in preseason. So
okay.
But still, based on John's connections and the fact that they're close, it could make it easy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So be on the lookout, because I think that's a big one. That's a big one where, they like to hide. They don't want to give too many good looks of some young players they want to keep hidden to these other organizations, because we do see, we'll see them kind of keeping an open eye on who's getting cut, who's getting, because if they see them scorching one of their young players that they're high on, or vice versa, then they're going to be looking to snatch somebody if they see a good player get released.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Glenn, this is, I think, the moment that everyone really has been waiting for. Really? It's the wide receiver battle.
Yeah,
everyone's been talking about it. So let's get right into it. Right, I'm gonna read here. I'm gonna pull up Zrebek's tweet because I think he kind of, he had the same assumptions as we did as far as the depth chart there and who the locks are. Give me one.
Because he watches the show.
Yeah, he's exactly. All right.
Oh, there goes my light. It's going to get a little dark here.
It's after 10.
Hey, hold on now. Let me get a little closer to the microphone.
Oh, jeez.
What? When the lights go out.
Our viewers just dropped.
Everybody just left. So Marquise Brown's a guarantee, right?
Right. So he's saying that there's going to be, So he's saying there's going to be 6 is what he believes will be on the roster.
Okay.
And so he's saying, like you're saying, Marquise, Rashad. So Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins, Devin Duvernay, and Tylenol Wallace are all considered in his eyes locks.
Yep.
So his assumption is that we will have 6, and then he thinks it will be Miles Boykin.
Man, he must watch the program. Yeah, I think
you just called it a program. That's awesome.
It's old school, man.
That's right. You gotta watch my programs.
Yeah. So do you disagree? Do you agree? What's your take?
Oh man, I would feel so bad for James Prochet because I think that kid has got a ton of ball skills. I think.
What about Boykins?
Well, if you could make them one human, you know what I mean? You just mash them together, right? And then Boykin has the ball skills Prochet has the ball skills and Boykin has the size, but so it comes down to a few things. You said this before, and I agree with you. Who is more likely to get on the practice squad? Right? And who can provide more value outside of just the wide receiver position? You know what I mean? So Boykins has shown up in the in the special teams game and made some impacts. James has done so in other ways, but now there's a serious redundancy with what Devin Duvernay can do, right?
Yep.
And James Prochet hasn't really done anything that Devin doesn't do better. Like there's really no other way to say it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it ends up being Boykin.
That gets released or makes
no. Sorry,
okay.
that is that 6th spot, and I'll say that with an optimistic caveat. Usually, people say with a caveat, and it's like something negative or something. I'm saying this optimistically. He might also be the player that is positively impacted the most by these coaching acquisitions.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Because physically, like on paper, no one
can match him.
Exactly.
In this room, right.
That's what I'm saying. Right. So no one exactly from measurables, no one has what he has. So if they can just put it together, you know what I mean? It certainly would be interesting. And so I think he's the one that makes it.
Getting me a little excited about Miles Boykin because I think you're turning back because I remember my excitement level when he first got here. And when I saw him on that practice field and I saw him just towering over everyone else in the room, and yet still running just as fast in the straight line, I was really getting excited. But I think you can turn him into a great route runner. You can do this thing. And ultimately, you cannot teach ball skills. And I still question his ball skills. So my thing is, have we forgotten and are we overlooking Deon Cain a little bit? I mean, I heard about his name being thrown about not long ago. And we haven't even brought him up. And let me just say who all is competing for that spot because it is Miles Boykin and James Prochet, but also Jalen Moore, Deon Cain, and Ben Victor. I think are all three also, very much in the conversation. I think that neither Boykin or Prochet have done enough to even really put them above any of these guys. I mean, I guess Boykin's done a little bit more because he's had a lot more opportunity than Prochet. But man, I'm still not ready to give up on what Deon Cain might be able to bring if he can stay healthy. I mean, he's got, like you mentioned, he's got some of that size. Not to the level of Miles Boykin, but he's every bit of 6'2", and I think even that stands him above pretty much everyone else in the room other than Boykin. So I think he has that. But also, when you talk about Prochet, yeah, Duvernay is better than him as a returner, but Prochet has definitely shown that he can be counted on for, at the very least, catching the ball, securing it, and getting what's expected, and maybe even a little bit more than what's expected, but hasn't had the big one yet to kind of boost his numbers. But if Duvernay were to go down, James Prochet is our only obvious option. Now I know that Bateman and Tylen and even Marquise and I think maybe even Sammy are catching punts and stuff in practice, but they said they've done that throughout. And yet on game day, we haven't seen any of those guys, even at the college level. In Bateman's, in Bateman's case, we haven't seen them actually catching punts or returning kicks. So I'm not ready to just give up on Prochet, because if Duvernay goes down, I would really be shaken and be a little nervous about who's going back there to catch the ball, and we don't know what we're going to get. At least if Prochet is still on the team, we know what we're going to get. So, man, it's going to be interesting to see if they ultimately try and keep 7, because they don't want to lose a young, talented, affordable guy. But, man, it's going to be tough. And also, do they hide Deion Kane? Do they hide some of these guys? Who gets the phantom IR? Who rolls an ankle on their way to their car? Because there's going to be some guys put on IR just to hide them and keep them around. Also, who misses the joint practice? Be on the lookout, because if there's a joint practice and we see Deion Kane and we see Ben Victor both miss it or something like that with a phantom injury, when all of a sudden they were playing all camp and then they missed that, it might be hiding some of these guys from opposing offenses and opposing coaching staffs.
Yeah, man, it's such an interesting room, and it's such a good problem to have in that we're relatively deep. Now, there's a lot of question marks in what they will become, but we have a lot of opportunities, certainly for players to develop. And doubling down on the coaching thing, it was Keyshawn Johnson who said, I think it was this morning or yesterday morning, on the show with Jay Will and the early morning radio show that they do to replace Mike and Mike. But he said the Ravens or wide receiver core will be 20 times better with Keith Williams on their staff.
Man.
Hey, I mean, that's a great player, and a great wide receiver in his own respect, saying some pretty bold things about our guy, Keith Williams. So not mad at that.
No, excited to hear that. I mean, every time I see clips of him working with the young guys, and it gets me excited. It makes me wonder because here, let's just imagine, Jimbo, that they do get this passing game up to, say, middle of the pack. If it's just middle of the pack as far as performance and production on the field, with that run game, I mean, it could be serious problems for opposing defenses. Then you talk about the talent level on the defensive side of the ball. Man, the sky's the limit here. And this is a big year, because you look around the AFC, there's a lot of talented teams. So I think the Ravens need to be really good, and they need to be good in all areas, not just one or two. So, man, if they put it together, Jimbo, and can have a middle of the pack or better passing attack, they could be a real handful to stop.
Yeah, and I do gotta shout out Goman. Somebody mentioned this. He's been on Boykin. He has been on Boykin since day one. Maybe a little bit of maybe a little too much, but if it ends up turning out like you said, Glenn, he can put it together. I mean, you talk about upside. He's definitely got the upside. But so let me get a definitive statement out of you. Then it sounds like if you had to predict that you're going towards Prochet being the guy.
Man, you know what? I think I'm leaning towards Prochet. I think I am, because of the other areas he can influence. But ultimately, I think they shock everyone and keep 7. I'm starting to get on that bandwagon. They haven't kept more than 6 in a long, long time. I tried to look back to see when they came out of camp with more than 6, and you'd have to really search. I couldn't find any. So, I mean, but I think there's a shot they do it this year. I think there's a very slim chance that they fall in love and they just say, we can't risk losing any of these guys. But if I had to put my money on it, Jimbo, I would say that it's Boykin who makes the team, because they feel like they can squeeze Prochet through to the practice squad. But I wouldn't be necessarily thrilled about that. Uh-oh.
No, I'm back. I'm back. No, I got
nervous.
You.
I was going to bring DK in. I was going to
call in the lefty. Go to
the bullpen.
That's all right. Start playing Sandman is what you got to do.
That's right. That's right. So I want to move to a different position, if that's cool.
Yeah. But before we do, we're gonna have to throw a Texas fan in timeout here. We're gonna have to.
I haven't been watching much.
Timeout so far.
I haven't been watching a whole ton of what he's had to say, but I do see that he's trolling
pretty hard.
I mean, I think the Texans. I mean, I don't know
You
how
got
you
our
say
worst
much.
coach.
I mean,
like at the end of the day, you got our worst coach.
well, I mean, just is there a bigger dumpster fire in the entire league right now than the Houston Texans? I mean, nobody wants to go there.
Yeah, when you smell bad next to the Jets, that's a problem.
Oh yeah, I mean, no doubt. They don't know who their quarterback is this year, and it could be an absolute disaster. No free agent's going to want to go there for quite some time because they have no faith in their front office, no faith in their coaching staff, certainly not in their head coach, who's been ridiculed across the league. So, but yeah, should I ever, let's not go down and feed into the trolls.
Right.
But yeah, it's they're a mess. So
I just like that we have a timeout option. It amuses me.
Yeah, I think we may have to use it, especially when the nonsense is being spewed. But yeah, anyway, let's get into this running back battle. And if oh my good, you know what? Timeout. He's being put in timeout, ladies and gentlemen. When you continue to call our quarterback a running back,
get the timeout.
You get the timeout. A running back can't lead the league in touchdown passes. It's stupid. It's stupidity here.
And go off in timeout, like my dad used to say, nothing to clear your head like a set of push-ups. Go out there, do some push-ups, come back when you're a little more clear-headed and you got something to say.
Yeah, got put right in timeout. Billy Seal says, dilly dilly to the pit of misery with Texans and their fans. Dilly dilly! Yes, I miss those commercials. I remember when the guy snuck out of the pit of misery, came back with Bud Light, and threw the keys through the front gate. That was the greatest commercial. It's like, I brought Bud Light. What's the problem? What's the problem here? But yeah, let's move on to the running back room because this one's a little curious. John Harbaugh all but guaranteed the fact that we're going to see JK, Gus, and even Justice Hill was guaranteed on this roster. But this is a run-heavy team. I see Tyson Williams behind him, Nate McCrary, and they even list Patrick Ricard and Ben Mason in the running back room because there's really no fullback position on all the depth charts right now because most don't even have one. So do you think they only keep those three running backs? Do you have any confidence, any hope, any need, do you think, to keep Tyson Williams or even add a veteran like Todd Gurley who just visited last week?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm
glad we brought this up. Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry. So let me back up. Yes, I apologize. I answered your question incorrectly. I think that if it's Todd Gurley, I can't think of a single other name unless there's another cut that it would be necessary to bring in another guy. I don't know if Justice Hill is dependable, is I guess what I'm getting at. So if you can find a guy that's better, then why not, right? This first year, 17 games. We're going to run the ball a record number, all these things. We want JK to be healthy. We want Gus to be healthy. And so we're going to need a third guy that can be depended upon, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think if you can get a guy like a Gurley, I think at his worst, he's better than Justice Hill at his best.
I'm confident enough to say that. I mean,
yeah, it is what it is, right?
What have we seen from Justice Hill that has made you think he's someone who can be relied upon? Now, I'm still holding out hope that this year he could turn into a player that shows you a little something because there's no doubt that there's going to be a time where we're going to have to rely on him. And JK is obviously poised to have a breakout season. He says, he's not thrilled with where PFF had him ranked. He says they don't know how to grade film over at PFF. And so he's expected and he's gearing up to have a monster season. And Gus coming off of that contract extension, I'm sure is going out there to want to prove that he's, still hungry and worthy of that contract and worthy of that money. And I don't think anyone anticipates him doing anything but Justice Hill hasn't really shown me much yet. He hasn't shown me anything more than a quality depth guy in the special teams room. But I don't see a lot. Now I know people fall in love with his speed, but have you seen that speed on the actual NFL field? Or are you still going back to highlights from him back in college? I'm not really impressed by what I've seen. I think to me, he's a guy that gets brought down by a lot of arm tackles. He's not a guy who can run through the, in between the in between the tackles and in between the guards and move guys. I think he's a special teamer at best.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he's the reason why they feel comfortable ultimately cutting and hoping that Prochet can go to the practice squad, because he can help in the return game. There's no doubt. I don't know if he can help in the punt return game, but he can help in the kick return game. But other than that, if we were to have to rely on him, I would not be too excited. So, I mean, Ing Raven thinks we keep 3, Jimmy. What do you say?
I think at the end of the day, we keep 3. I don't think it'll be like last year where we had 4. At the same time, though, how surprised would you be? But yes, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be 3. And it's funny because somebody, low-hanging fruit, brought this up, and I saw his report saying he retired before he played for Andy Reid. Anyway, I mean, if Lev Bell's not... So what I think about Le'Veon Bell is that he's too much of a me guy to fit into the culture of the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't think the Ravens will bring him in because he's too much of a me guy. But instead of whether or not you think they will, would you welcome the opportunity to have him in your backfield? Like, whether, the likelihood of it is out the door, but theoretically speaking, if that wasn't a part of the conversation, would you welcome it, or would you just say stay away from it?
Stay as far away as you possibly can. I mean, look, he just come off of a season where he went to the Super Bowl, and I know that Andy Reid is criticized for his lack of commitment to the run game, and I think that's a fair criticism, especially in those playoff games. But, man, what would you expect? I mean, look, what is he playing for at this point? He's not playing for – he's made enough money. He's not really playing for – so what else is he playing for other than just – I mean, I should rephrase. He's made enough money, but I think that's all he's playing for is another check. I don't necessarily think he's still hungry to go out there and see if he can be better than he ever was. I'm not so sure about that. Billy Seal says, don't forget Bench Mason is a running back. Yeah, he definitely checks a lot of boxes. We brought up his record at
9 touchdowns.
I mean, that's something. I mean, I don't think you can overlook that, and that's part of his game and the physicality he brings. So I think that he's certainly a guy that is going to play a little bit of tight end. He's going to play a little fullback. He might even play a little bit of halfback. And who else knows? Where definitely special teams, but where else do you think they could fit this guy? I mean, I think that's a fun, versatile type of athlete that the Ravens are going to have fun mixing in a bunch of different spots. So yeah.
Now what? So, Ing, I'm gonna reference your comment one more time, only because I don't wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. While I don't disagree, I think that Lamar Jackson certainly improves the play of the running backs, makes their lives easier in the RPO game and things like that. I don't think that you could stick anyone back there. I think you still have to have really quality backs. And I think so. A couple things. I think Lamar is the engine, but the system is Greg's. Right. And the system is a big part of that as well. Whoever you have under center obviously makes a difference. But whether it's Lamar or another guy, the system will be in place. And the only thing I'll say behind that is, from that, if you take Lamar away, the guys will get worse. But the system in and of itself also provides these guys with a lot of big holes and opportunities to make plays in the run game. But the other thing, too, is I've said this before, and I know it's only one game, but Gus tore the Steelers apart in a game that mattered to them, and Lamar was on the sideline that 2019 year. I think he ran for $120 and I think 2 touchdowns, if not at least 1. And that was with a punch-drunk RG3 under center, who I think at that point has to get naked to count to 21. So certainly, Gus, what I'm trying to say is that we have high-quality backs. We're lucky that we have high-quality backs.
It's a family show.
Sorry.
This is a family show, Jim.
Sorry. But what I'm trying to say is that we're lucky that we have high quality backs. I don't think it's like a rip and replace type thing. I think we got to have good backs to make this the best rushing attack in the NFL. I think that matters almost as much as Lamar being the guy. Maybe not as much, but almost as much is what I'll say.
Well, I mean, and I agree with you. I just think that Justice Hill, they say, a lot of people say, well, he hasn't had the opportunities, and I'll give you that he hasn't had the same opportunities as other guys on the roster. But when you consider he had 58 carries in 2019 when the Ravens really first started setting those rushing records. He had 58 total carries, and he averaged under 4 yards a carry. He got to 3.9. 4 yards is the minimum of what a running back is expected to be considered, a viable option. So when you consider on the best team to ever do it, he couldn't even get to that bare minimum of 4 when everyone else was well above 5 is something. And then they talk about, a lot of people point to his pass catching. Well, even as a pass catcher, he hasn't impressed me. I mean, in that same year in 2019, he caught 8 of 15 targets, 53% catch rate. Even for his career, he's caught 65% of his targets. I mean, you talk about a guy that plays right next to him, Gus Edwards, who is considered not, a receiving back, and a guy who they say is more just in between, the tackles there. He has an 81.8% catch rate for his career. So, in similar targets. So, I mean, I think that Gus has shown, and really JK as well, has shown to be better than Justice in both areas. And Justice, to me, hasn't even shown to be average in those areas. So, he at all upset at all if they made a move at that area. I don't expect them to, and John made that pretty clear. But I wouldn't be upset to see them find a better guy like a Todd Gurley and let him take and eat up those snaps. Because look, he went from 58 carries in 2019 to just 12 in 2020. And people say, well, they had a lot of backs. They had 4. Well, Mark Ingram missed an awful lot of time. So obviously the Ravens weren't thrilled with his production, or we would have seen his carry. I think we would have seen him get more than just 12 carries throughout the entire season. Yeah,
for sure. That's he's trending in the wrong direction, which is unfortunate. But I also want to say that I really like RG3 as a person. I just feel like he was really beat up. He was
awesome for his role.
That was my point, was that he just took a lot of hits like Mike Vick late in his career, right? Like took a lot of shots to the head.
Oh yeah. And he's about to be an analyst. It looks like he's getting ready to maybe move into the analyst role. I think he'd be great at that. So yeah. And he was awesome.
He can replace Tim Tebow.
There you go. Exactly.
Now that Tim Tebow is tight end.
If I was over at those television networks, I wouldn't be so sure if Tim Tebow's not back at the end of this training camp. So I'm not ready to fill his spot just yet.
Keeping it warm.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not so sure he's not back soon.
Hey, and we also got to show off the shirts. Did we already?
Oh no, we didn't. But the gear is here. Pretty much. Was this the first or second?
This
edition?
is the second edition. Exactly. This is the black. So go get it while you can. Hot off the press.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. We're excited about it. Hopefully you guys like it as well. It's in the description. If you're having a hard time finding it or anything like that, just hit us up on Twitter or whatever. But it's in the description of all of our videos. You can go find our store.
But yeah, so running back spot, if they keep 3, I'm fine. If they keep 4, it better be Todd Gurley or some other veteran, because I think you could easily get those other guys through the practice squad. No doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly. Look, appreciate the love, Ben Cleveland. So, Glenn, I kind of want to throw something on you here.
Ben Cleveland. I think it's Troy, and I'm not sure what the Ben Cleveland means after it. But yeah,
I want to do something ad hoc here. This is ad lib. We did not talk about this pre-show. But last week we had a little bit of fun doing some related to the Ravens, not related to the Ravens, but we wanted you guys to contribute more so you could literally ask us whatever you want. We got 15 minutes left in the show, and we want to save some time for that, along with some wisdom from our boy DK. Get ready, DK, as always. But so we want to spend some time there. Literally, you guys we want you guys to ask anything you want. Guaranteed response will be the super chats, but you don't need to do that. If you don't want to do that, go ahead and hit in the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can. And if we get none, that might be a little embarrassing, and I'll start to sweat a little bit. But certainly, Ravens related or non-Ravens related appropriate questions. Certainly, Glenn is an open book for better or for worse. So. Yeah, that is what it is. But we wanted to save some time to allow you guys to ask us some questions.
Yeah, and Joseph has one, but before we go there, Ing Raven says you've been ad-libbing a lot tonight, and Brandon Thompson agrees. He said, yeah, between boobies and punch drunk, You know it in Raven. So, yeah, I mean, we've definitely been mixing it up a lot. But, yeah, Joseph Black says, who will have a better season, Queen or Harrison? I think that's, and David Nance also says Queen or Harrison, more playing time. I think that Queen, is the obvious choice in between those two. I think that LJ Fort even has a bigger presence, I still think, at this point than even Malik Harrison. But I think I don't know if you're going to find a guy, maybe Chuck Clark, but you're not going to find many guys that play more snaps on this defense than Pat Queen. So he's going to have a ton of opportunity, and the amount of preparation, the excitement to show that preparation off to the world, I think has me really excited about what Pat Queen is going to bring. So I'm really excited about what Patrick Queen's going to bring, and a little bit of Harrison as well, but definitely right up there, excitement for old Patrick.
Certainly. And anonymous YouTuber asked a really insane question about Lamar sitting behind Rodgers for a year, whether or not he would benefit from that. And he saved himself by saying that Queen reminds me of Ray Lewis. I was thinking about that today. Not going to put him in that category yet, but his athleticism, his raw athleticism, I think it's certainly fair to compare them athletically. I'm not saying he's the leader or the instinctual player, but like Queen's speed is ridiculous. Ray Wood came in that time was an undersized linebacker, was, that was part of his knock in his draft process, but certainly, so I can see that comparison, but he's got a long way to go, of course, to be Ray Lewis.
Yeah. And Tim says, would you guys consider a segment on our glorious football history? Young fans should know. I agree in the sense that, man, I'm often surprised by the young fans. Sorry, Ing Raven said he's waiting for his dog to poop. Come on, man. You can't do us like that. Totally threw me off my train of thought. But yeah, I'm often surprised by the younger fan. I think it's cool though. I love the fact that Raven Nation and the flock is growing, and I think Lamar Jackson's a huge part of the reason that we've seen that uptick in the fan base. But I do think that there's some stars in the past that have been overlooked by young fans, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal. I'm often, when I talk to my dad, I'm always reminded of players that played before my time, and he always tells the stories of the guys and the warriors that came before. So, but yeah, we've had, and just to let you know, Tim, we have had shows in the past where we built an all-time offense, all-time defense from Raven history. We've done a lot of those positional rankings. If you want to check out our video library, but
you know what we could do here, Glenn? That would be cool. We could do like a "Where were you" moment in history for the Ravens. Like, where were you when Jamal broke the single game rushing rate? Where were you when the Ravens won their first Super Bowl? Where were you when the Ravens drafted Ogden and E. Reed and all that? I think that could be a cool way to talk about the history of the team. Where were you? Like, remember, I know exactly where I was when Lamar got drafted. I remember walking out of the room. We were living right on 101 South Elwood. I remember walking out of the room after they got Hayden Hurst, and I was like, all right, I knew that there was a chance we could get back in. I'm like, okay, we got a tight end. I like him. I'm starting to decompress a little bit. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting up in my bed and my wife's already asleep, and I wake her up. I'm like, hey, the Ravens just traded back in. You know what I mean? One of those things. And yeah, she's like, oh, okay, Lamar Jackson. And she goes back to sleep.
Just leave me alone. Let me sleep.
Yeah, but I think that could be a cool way we could do that.
Absolutely. I think I still remember when Jermaine Lewis took that kick return back in the Super Bowl, and I was screaming. I would think I was, 13? And I was screaming, we can do it too. I was nice. So pumped. And when I grew up, full disclosure, my dad had times where he was in and out, and there were times where I was the only football fan in the room, because now my brother's a huge football fan now and doesn't miss anything. He's always, if you find me, my brother's right next to me watching him with me. But back in the day, it wasn't like that. I was the only football fan in the house. So fights over the remote control, stuff like that, which ultimately I won because I'm persistent. But yeah, I think that was one of the funnest times back, that first Super Bowl, no doubt about it.
What about this one? Now, I don't want to give all of them away before we do this video because I think it'd be fun, but where were you when Cundiff did?
Oh my goodness. I was in this basement that I'm in right now, absolutely stunned. I mean, still reeling from the Lee Evans drop or removal. If you want to, give the credit to the defender. He made a play on the ball, but you got to squeeze that ball.
Yeah.
But still reeling from that, and then absolutely put on my backside by Billy Cundiff smoking the field goal. Oh my god, it was devastating. I mean, because that's the thing about football. It's over so quickly. It feels like it's like you plan your whole season around those Sundays. I mean, that's really our whole season. That whole time of year is all planned around Ravens games. What are we going to do for the game? When is the game? But so when it just ended, it was like you just look around like you're looking at your buddies and your family. You're going, is it really over? Is it no more football?
Yeah, you're in disbelief. I remember because it was right before we got married. My wife and I were dating. I think we were engaged at that time, and we were at her apartment watching the game. And I remember I got up on her kitchen island and laid on my back, just staring up at the ceiling. I mean, I had no idea what to do. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I could have made that kick.
Well, yeah, you probably could have. I couldn't.
Who knows, man? But yeah, it was brutal. Now, I got married in 2012. I did, yes. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say too, a happy memory though was I'm forgetting it now. Somebody brought it up in here. They brought up the kickoff, but there was another one. Oh, where were you, Glenn? So we talked about the Cundiff situation, but you remember the first time you saw the recording of Ray Lewis in the huddle in that post game as the season was over, rallying the troops?
That was so inspiring. I mean, just pick your head up, pick your head up. We'll be back.
Goosebumps, bro.
Oh, I mean, that's why he is who he is. I mean, the ultimate leader, the guy running over there, patting Billy Cundiff, patting him on his backside, letting him know, we're here for you. We lose as a team. So, I mean, just the ultimate leader. I mean, who in that moment isn't salty? He's walking around making sure everyone else is good while inside he's devastated. He's got to have frustrations. But you're right. I mean, just the ultimate leader and shout out to Ray. We're never going to have another one like Ray Lewis.
Never, man. For better or for worse. I know that some people at the end of his career didn't like the antics. I didn't mind him at all because I feel like Ray's just who he is. That I believed it was all genuine because that's who he's always been. Yep. Like cameras or no cameras. That's just Ray Lewis, right? Like if you guys want to watch an awesome TED Talk, Ray Lewis giving a TED Talk, he talks about using pain as the benefits of going through things. And he also, I don't know why, if this is the case, but he mentions how he started using a deck of cards to work out with. He'd flip the card over, do 5 push-ups, flip the card over, do 2 sit-ups, whatever. But he also said that there's 52 cards in a deck and I wear number 52. Anyway, it was really interesting. So I don't know if that's actually why he wears 52, but
yeah, I've heard him say that before. Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really interesting stuff. You're right. We'll never have another Ray Lewis, man. It's just, yeah.
I'm just glad I got to watch him.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one we'll have to do was the thunder thigh interception by T Sizzle. I mean, that was a big one. All of the interceptions from Ed Reed where he caught him in the end zone and Brian Billick's hair was coming out and he was,
the Ed Reed when he was going, go down, Ed. Go down, Ed. And then 10 seconds later, go, Ed.
Yeah. No, not 10 seconds. I was like 2 seconons.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And running down the field after him on the sidelines. The Ray Rice, hey diddle diddle. Was it 4th and 29?
Yeah.
And Anquan laying out your boy Eric Weddle, putting him to sleep on the field and helping him get those last couple yards. I mean, who converts a 4th and 29, Jimbo? And who doesn't? And I don't care what anyone says. I don't care that it worked out. It was a bad decision to dump it down. Decision. You don't dump it down. I don't care that it worked. Just because it's just like taking a horrible shot. Just because it goes in does not make it a good shot.
Yeah, don't do this again.
No, you throw it past the sticks because you hope for a PI, you hope for a DeAndre Hopkins, catch, especially when you got a guy like Anquan Bolden who can actually make those kinds of incredible catches.
In the trees, right?
He dumped it down, and thank goodness he did because Ray Rice took it from there. And then also, as Nana was bringing up earlier, Of course, the other Ray Rice situation, I'll never forget when I first saw the first half of that video and still had hopes that maybe she had too much to drink and that part hadn't got. But as soon as that second part got released, it was, that was tough to watch. And,
and this is not to diminish any of that, but I have to say, my dad's built his career in rehabilitation. Ray Rice has really dug in. And it's unfortunate that he, of course, will always be the name.
He'll be the poster child, yeah.
Right, but certainly has dug into the rehabilitation of their relationship, him as a person, and you can't do anything but hope for the best for him and her and their entire family. But yeah, that was a gut. My heart sank.
Oh,
because if you reach out, because you think about, I mean, the strength that he has as a professional athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but this is the other thing I will say, regardless of the off-field stuff, on field, I think because of the off-field stuff, Ray Rice has been pushed down the list as far as ranking of Ravens running backs.
Yeah.
But man, Ray in his heyday was a pack of dynamite.
Oh, he's a clear-cut number 2 all time behind Jamal Lewis.
I mean,
and had a chance to pass him. Yeah, and I think he was on pace to possibly pass him because you remember that year he had a down year the year before that incident and came back, was in phenomenal shape and was hoping to bounce back. And then, once that video got released, you're right, he became really the poster for domestic violence for a period, and certainly a poster for domestic violence in sports. And so, yeah, but he's done a lot since. And shout out, to Ray Rice for all that he's done, all the work he's done since that situation.
Yeah, but Tim Ott said he'd take Ray Rice over Jamal. I ain't doing that. Not any day of the week, not twice on Sunday. Jamal, you remember the stutter step? The little Oh, Jamal Lewis was nasty.
Yeah, now I remember Ray Rice as a receiver was pretty special. I mean, the way he would snatch the ball out of the air one-handed.
Put his paw on the ground,
keep his balance. Yep, yeah. But I mean, come on, that season with Jamal running it was kind of like
offense.
It was kind of like the Chris Davis year when he had that crazy year. Every time he was up, I thought he was going to hit a home run. Same thing with Jamal Lewis. Every time he got the ball, I thought he was going to break 8 tackles and get a touchdown. I mean, it was absolutely an incredible run. Those little choppy feet. Oh my! And that size he brought. I mean, that run against. Obviously, the game against Cleveland where he went for 300 yards, that was an absolute ridiculous. I mean, big run after big run, just throwing guys to the turf. Impressive. Yeah, maybe we'll, even though we did just talk about a bunch of moments, maybe we should
make a video out of it.
Yeah, I think I agree. We got to make something because, there's a lot of new fans, which we love. I love the new fans. But they obviously have some history they got to get, in touch with, no doubt about it. But it's the end of the show, Jimmy.
We got to get DK in here,
We got to get the words of wisdom from our guy, DK, who, by the way, is turning out to be one of the very best sports writers you'll find talking Baltimore Ravens football.
That's right.
And I know he is he's a little humble right now, but he needs to be a little, he should be very proud of his writing. So, DK, no pressure or nothing, but welcome to the stream. Oh, and then I just removed him. What's up, DK? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Just listening to you guys chat about the Ravens history and reminding me of moments of my own and where I was at. I'm not sure I remember exactly where I was at every single moment, but I remember how I felt, through a lot of those. So it was kind of fun strolling down memory lane.
Absolutely. Sure. Now, you were you're a younger guy. Are you younger than us, DK?
I'm older. I'm a few years older than you guys.
Okay, so good. You remember all those moments and have them fresh in your mind. That's what's cool about the Ravens, isn't it, DK? Sure. That we remember everything that's ever happened in franchise history.
Yeah. It's kind of unique to have that kind of perspective where from the beginning. I mean, if you've watched, from beginning to the current times, how much it's changed, or I think the biggest story about the Ravens is the continuity. You watch other franchises and they go through head coaches, they go through GMs. And the one thing, through thick and thin, the Ravens have been really good at is to have a continuity, to have a system in place where even even when people do change, like obviously one of the biggest examples is Ozzie Newsome, to Eric DaCosta. But obviously even to Art Modell to Bisciotti, it's such a smooth transition regardless of where you look at in Ravens history. And I think that's what you can attribute a lot of the success to, and a lot of the history and the culture being passed down. And I would say the same thing. I mean, like Ray Lewis, for instance, you're never going to find another Ray Lewis, but the fact that, even after he retired, that he could walk into the locker room and address the players, and that means just as much. I don't know that you can do that in every franchise. Take a guy from the past and just say, hey, you have an open invitation to come talk to the team at critical moments. So I think that's a key part about how the Ravens have really built their franchise and what's so meaningful. And for me, like why being a fan is such a pride. I have such pride in being a Ravens fan for that reason.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. It's really, a lot of credit to, like you were saying, the front office, the ownership and things like that. And even John being able to, I think it's important. He pays homage to the guys before the guys that we had. He takes time to instill that into our young guys from day one. Right. And obviously they do their own research. Dalen Hayes talked about, watching the Ravens and especially defensive players. But certainly it's something that is rare. And I guess, we kind of take it for granted here, or think that every team does it. But yeah, that's,
I think the Orioles do just enough to make sure we don't take it for granted, because DK talked about that pride, and you're right. I mean, I'm proud of the Ravens and the organization we love and follow, but sometimes it's a little shame when you're elsewhere and you're like, I'm an Orioles fan. I mean, you kind of whisper.
But we got Camden Yards. That's what you go right to, right? It's a beautiful stadium.
We got a beautiful stadium. We got a pretty good farm system, but we got the best hot dog in professional sports is what we were voted. So, and also, by the way, Orioles, allow people to bring food in again. I mean, I think this was the first year where they stopped allowing you to bring outside food. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Wow.
That was a huge part of why it made it so much more affordable to go as a family to an Oriole game, because you could bring in you could bring a nice sub in with you and you could bring in some stuff.
Chick-fil-A, baby.
You could even bring in a hot dog from the vendor outside. Yeah, I mean, you could do those things. Now they got all these restrictions. Stop it, Oriole. Let us come back in. Let us bring our food. Let us bring some bottled water like the good old days, and maybe you'll see some more butts in the seats, despite the fact that the competitiveness still is not there yet.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And DK, I love the words of wisdom. I think that the Ravens are certainly one of the most consistent franchises in the NFL. You see it in their winning, see it in really all the decisions that they make as a franchise. Well, I had an absolute blast tonight. I think we got some new show ideas. I'm excited about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. So let's give some shout outs here, Glenn. Of course, we got to start with Ing Raven. But for participating in the chat, shout out, man.
Hope the doo-doo came out fine from the dog there. And
hopefully you had a bag.
Yeah. Be a good neighbor. Pick up the doo-doo, okay? Because nothing makes me more furious when I see a big pile sitting in my front yard because my neighbor didn't pick it up.
Well, so at what point do you not? Like, my dog's big, but if it's a watery, I'm not sticking my hand in there.
If it's watery, if you got a bottle of water on you,
just kind of douse it a little bit.
Yeah, give a little extra because, I understand the smear. Yeah, but if it's logs, Lincoln logs, you scoop them Lincoln logs and you take those suckers with you. But don't let your dog see you pick it up. They lose a little respect for you. Okay, you gotta shield the eyes. Scoop the doo-doo, okay? Because you don't want them seeing you pick up. I mean, that's not a good. Just imagine if an alien was watching. Who do they think the boss is? They're going to think the dog's the boss. They're not going to know you're the man.
Like the great George Lopez said, look, the dog, if he sees you picking up the poop, he's going to say, why didn't I just do it in the house?
That's it. You're going to pick it up anyway.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? So why do it outside? But I tell you what, Mater, my parents' little toy dog, I'm not picking up his poop, Glenn.
It's too small?
It's too small. I'm not doing it. It dries up in 30 minutes and it just looks like mulch. I'm not doing it, dude.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, Lisa Ann, shout out to you for being in the comments all night. Nana Rave, as always, showing the love. Dwayne Hunter, Appreciate you coming out and commenting. Let's see, Tim Hott, he's loving the boobies, ball skills, and dog poop talk. Shout out Terrence Hall. Appreciate you coming out. Pat Manley, Nick Solano, who still making my week here with that the picture he sent over to us of him wearing the shirt.
Yes,
Don C, always out here hyping up the like button. Appreciate you, Fabian.
I was going to say, Dave Nance will go down in infamy, of course, as the first guy that recognizes in public, and now he's participating in the chats.
It's you, Dave.
Used to before. Shout out. Sorry, you were going to get to...
Yeah, Fabian Barsanis says DK is the best first-round pick. Absolutely, I agree. Certainly a lottery's choice there. Brandon Thompson says Hoagie. Yeah, you're right. I should have said Hoagie. Yeah, absolutely. I apologize there. Big Cuz, welcome in. Thanks for coming in. Eric B, you as well. If there's someone else I'm missing, I apologize. All you who just watched and didn't participate in chat, appreciate you as well. Thanks to all who donated using the super chat. We certainly appreciate that. Jimmy, give him a quick. What was that? What was the cause?
So Move for Life is a nonprofit organization, like I mentioned before, and basically their goal is to allow fitness and exercise access to those that don't have the funds to do so, and that that isn't covered by Medicare and Medicaid and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to donate the super chats, like Glenn said, to that cause. We think it's a really great one. It improves quality of life for people. So go out there and run a lap or two. But certainly we're excited about that. And you can also go check out their website, moveforlife.org. You can donate as well. It's tax deductible. Or if you're already ripped and you're in the weight room, you're into CrossFit, they have a team competition, the Super Soldiers competition coming up July 10th. So check it out. I will be in it next year. So if you want to get a good laugh, sign up next year. Watch me fail.
Oh, stop. He's being modest here.
No,
but
I'm a runner, not a CrossFitter.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we'll be back soon, guys. At Thursday, we're hoping for sure that we'll have that guest, the former safety and sideline reporter.
Let me give you the name one more time so you guys can look him up. Landry Burdine, Burdine. Sorry, Landry Burdine.
That's right.
Yeah, really
former
excited.
Safety, not just the TCU and former player and TCU reporter, but a former safety evaluating another safety in our Darius Washington, giving us the lowdown. Why was he not
Who else
drafted?
is doing this for you guys?
You know what I'm saying? Giving you the inside information. But that's it for us tonight, and we'll talk soon.
See ya.